What I just did wasn't really that hard physically. I've done harder things, but it was one of the more challenging or awkward things that you could do. If you're going to wash somebody's feet, you're going to have to hunch over. You're going to have to stoop down. You're going to have to get into positions that are uncomfortable. I was watching some footage of Pope Francis washing prisoners' feet, like Deacon Steve, who works at Green Correctional Facility. Pope Francis, every Holy Thursday, likes to go and be with people who have no one else to tell them that they're wonderful. And so Pope Francis goes to tell them that they have dignity no matter what they've done. But as I was watching the video, I was like, maybe I'll learn from the Pope how to do this. Maybe he's got some tips on how to not step on your robe when you're trying to get up and then lurch yourself forward again. But you know what? He doesn't have any. He was just the same as I was just now. His big cross was swinging back and forth and clocking people in the ankle bone. He was hunched over. He was stooped down, because that's exactly what you have to do. And Jesus says in the gospel, what I just did for you, I want you to do. I want you to do exactly as I just did. So what is he saying? Is he saying, I want you to do good deeds? I think he's saying something a little more specific than that. I think he's saying, I want you to stoop over. I want you to bend down and hunch to have to do the things that bring people life, that make their burdens a little easier to bear. I think he's saying that we have to do things that get our clothes all tangled around us, that interrupt our schedule, that get us dirty, that maybe put us in positions that are unexpected or awkward. I think he's saying, I want you to stoop. There is a woman that I know who is caring for her terminally ill husband. And he has a progressive illness, and he is getting worse by the day. And so she's had to watch as he's lost the ability to do so many things that he used to do for himself. And already she has to dress him. He can't get dressed anymore. Soon she knows she's going to have to feed him. And sometimes it's overwhelming. So a friend of hers in the parish said, I want you to know that if you ever get into a situation that's in over your head, call me. I want to be there. I'll be there. Just call and I'll come over. Well, about a week after he said that to her, her husband realized after he had used the bathroom that something had gone wrong and the toilet was overflowing all over. And she went over to try to plunge it, and she couldn't, and so she tried to turn the water off, but so much damage was already done, and she didn't know what to do. She wanted to cry. She just didn't know where to go, and the bathroom was a disaster. So she was humiliated, but she called the man, and he did what you do. He came over, and just like Pope Francis didn't have a glamorous way to wash people's feet, he didn't have a trick to how to do this in a nice, neat way. He hunched over. He stooped down. He got his knees wet. He had to work hard and probably grunt and moan at the toilet for a while. And then he had to mop up what happened. And then he had to go home and change his clothes. Sometimes we need to stoop down to do the work that God wants us to do. And Jesus says, what I just did, I want you to do. Sometimes we don't need to do it physically, but we do need to always stoop down, even if it's not physical. You may have heard a story not long ago about a Panera in New Hampshire. It was a pretty remarkable story. It starts off that a woman was dying in the hospital, and she said to her grandson, what I wouldn't give for a cup of Panera's clam chowder right now. And so the grandson said, I'm on it, Graham, and he called up Panera, and it turned out he got the manager on the phone, and she said, we don't make clam chowder every day of the week, just on Fridays. And it wasn't a Friday. But she heard the tone in his voice, and so she said, you know what? Just sit tight. Don't worry. I'll take care of it. Come here at 3 o'clock. So a couple hours went by. He went down to the Panera at 3 o'clock, and there she was with a big bowl of clam chowder and a box of cookies, and she handed it to him and said, there's no charge. It's on us. This is for your grandmother. Tell her we love her. The next day, he posted that on the Panera Facebook page, that had happened, that Sue, the manager, had done that. And within a day, they had 800,000 likes on that post. And incredibly, of those 800,000 people that heard about it, 35,000 of them took the time to write that manager at Panera a note, their own handwritten note, to say how beautiful they thought that was. They didn't know the woman who was dying, they didn't know the grandson, and they didn't know the manager. But they loved it because she stooped down. It's one thing to say, oh, sure, I'll give you some free soup, but she did way more than that. It wasn't a Friday. After she got that call, the first thing she had to do was go to the freezer and get out the clams and thaw them. Then she had to figure out how to get a free burner, because they already had all the soups of the day going. So she had to figure out how to put one over here and get a free burner. And she probably had to say to some of the employees, cover for me for a little while. I've got to make some clam chowder. I'll tell you more about it later. She stooped down. And that's what Jesus is saying to us. And that's what we are here to say to ourselves. How can I wash other people's feet? What am I being called to do? Jesus said, I want you to do this. So what do? I think we start off by deciding that we're going to be a stooper over. We're going to be one of the ones who stoop. We're going to be a stooper. We're going to hunch down. We make the decision. We say, I want to be someone who stoops down for others. And then we start looking. We scan around. And it won't take long before you meet someone who is going to need you to stoop down for them. And then when you find them, you say to yourself, this job's for me. I'm a stooper. You know, social media has made this so easy for us. Sometimes the way that we can stoop down for other people is going to come right into our inbox. We're going to find a way to do it. I found out that somebody who lived next door to me in college that I haven't talked to in 20 years, I found out through a friend that his young wife is dying of cancer, and they have 2 young kids. And so people said, we want to send them on a family vacation before she goes. We want them to make memories together. And so they set a goal of, let's see how much you can send in. Within a couple of weeks, they raised $26,000. And they sent them to Europe for 3 weeks. Just in time, because I found out that she just died on Sunday. The people that got that in their inbox, that wasn't an expense they were expecting to shell out. That wasn't something they were looking to do. But when they saw it, they stooped down and they figured out a way. And look at what all of us figuring out a way can do. I saw this happen just this week. I don't know how many of you were at the St. Patrick's dinner that we had at St. Mary's Church on Saturday. Do you know that a quarter of the people that were there were from Ravenna? How amazing is that? Well, one of the things that happened there was a 50-50 raffle. And so we were announcing at the 50-50 raffle, take a look at your tickets, and one of the kids read off the numbers of the winning ticket for the 50-50 raffle. And it took a while because people were saying, nah, it's not me. Somebody else said, oh, no, I didn't get it. But this one woman was going through these reams of tickets. I think she bought half the roll. And then after a few seconds, she said, it's me, I got it. And we all clapped for her politely because, you know, we wished it was us. And then she said, right away, they put the money in her hand for the 50-50, and without hesitating, she said, this money is for the St. Patrick's Capital Campaign. And she handed it right to me. Joan DeCaro did that. A St. Mary's parishioner. Now, let me tell you something. I have not talked to her about this at all, but I know she bought half the roll of tickets. This was a plan. She decided, I'm going to stoop down. And then she looked for a way that she could. And then she did it. She did it. I bet most of the money that she put in my hand was actually out of her wallet. So there's countless ways that we can wash other people's feet. Countless ways. Our job is to decide that we want to do it. And then to look around. And when we see an opportunity to remind ourselves, you can say to yourself, and I will say to myself, this job's for me. I'm a stooper.